Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. Time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters, writers, editors, journalists, people who are putting stuff out so that you can know a little bit what they're thinking about when they put it out and get a little more background about the stuff they're writing. In our second segment, we're going to talk to an artist who was displayed at Times Square on Valentine's Day with a very interesting project. We're going to show you that in a moment. But right now, let's get started with Daniel Parra, who is the Spanish language editor and reporter for City Limits. Daniel, nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Daniel has been writing, and it's just so important for us to fully understand what's going on with migrants in New York City. The most recent news that he's been writing about: 1,600 families with children have seen their stays in shelters expire. Another 7,200 are waiting for their deadlines to expire. Daniel, what happens to these people? These are human beings, and where we in the freezing cold in New York, we're throwing them out in the streets.
Yes,
In a word,
that's
yes.
that's basically what happened. These are families, so this only affects families. And actually, if you want to provide more update numbers, the controller last week provided some, so I can give it to you right now. So basically, as of February 4th, a total of 7,167 families with children in emergency shelters around the city have been given the 60-day notice. And of those, this
So
includes,
these people have been told that their shelter is expiring. That's
yes, yes,
and
yes,
then
yes.
what? So the question is, what happens to those people after this shelter expires? They just become homeless vagrants on the street.
No,
Migrants
so
on the
basically they can reapply. They should go to the Roosevelt Hotel or Arrival Center. It is called both. And they can reapply. But the thing here is that usually the 60-day notice letter that they are given doesn't
Mhm.
say much about the how to reapply, and doesn't break down like go this and then yeah.
I, I think and we're all sympathetic with the city of New York for what's been done to us in a way, because these are migrants that, for political reasons are being sent to New York. In your mind, as you cover it, do you have an answer here? Is the only answer more funding, which of course the mayor has been begging from the White House and from the governor? Is that what the answer is? Is there another way to handle this? I think we're all just would love to solve this, at least on the local level. On the national level, it's something else.
Yes, it's complicated. I would say a little, well, obviously more funding, but at the same time, uh, the city has to change how it responds to this situation. I recently, or actually yesterday, read an article from the Atlantic, asking basically the big question of like, if this like a migrant crisis, because and they were talking about how the U.S. basically welcome asylees from 30,000 of them,
Wow.
and anybody like we didn't hear about them, and it was all made through like a government program. Many cities participated,
So
but
you're
it was
saying
super
that,
well
right?
organized.
So that is well.
Everybody, and the thing, one more thing that I would like to add here
Mhm.
is that the key thing or the key component here is that they were allowed work permits kind of immediately. So that makes a change.
Oh, and that's a big thing because
Yeah.
then they have a chance. So this is something else that you've wrote about, is that there are jobs open to immigrants. listen, we know that there are many organizations, people looking for workers, and many of these are skilled workers, whether they're carpenters, whether they're cooks, or they're drivers, whatever it is. There are jobs for them. So this is a state thing that the state has to give them permits, or it has to come out of the federal government.
It has to come from the federal government. They
So
usually
you,
apply for employment authorization, which is a card that says you can work from a specific date to a specific date.
so in the migrant tents, you also wrote about illness and aging posing challenges because people are older, and then of course the work permit thing may not work, and certainly if they're ill, they've got to be taken care of, and if they're in a tent, that is not the prime, that's not the prime place that we really want them to live. Is the tent situation, at least on a temporary basis, working to some degree, even with these problems? In other words, we don't have housing for them, but is it working? I mean, is that your estimation of this?
What do you mean by working?
In
Because
other words, is it giving them an opportunity to live and to eat and find some sense of
yes,
stability?
then
Does
yes, yes, yes,
that's
yes. But
comforting to
it's
know.
yeah, and the city has put in place some ways to deal with people or migrants who are ill. So depending on the illness, they will either place them at a different hotel where they can isolate for a specific amount of time, or if it is nothing serious, they can basically stay at a
Mhm.
at the shelter that
Yeah,
they are in.
and now listen, I'm not looking for you to solve this immense problem. I mean, we all would love to do that. One of the other problems with the previous dialogue about being told that your stay in shelters is expiring is we do have thousands of children in migrant children in schools, and so if you take them out of the shelter where they're in, and they may be enrolled in school and even in one borough, then all of a sudden the next location um, is in another borough. If the city is moving them from one place to another place, even with a little bit of a delay, is that the best? In other words, again, I'm completely sympathetic to the mayor in the city of New York. I understand, but maybe we'd be better off with a different system, which is what you suggested a moment ago.
Yes, 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 yes. Basically, if migrants could have the tools to work, that'll be like
The
awesome
work
for
the
many
work thing for
the
you
work
is
per
the big thing.
yes, the work
In
permit.
terms of your covering of the migrant crisis, do you get to talk to some of the families or some of the people? In other words, give us an idea of what's it like to try and cover it. I mean, I realize there's a lot of governmental information you get, but have you had firsthand interaction? Have you seen stuff with your own eyes?
Yes, basically, we try to like every single story that we cover, we try to put uh, somebody behind it. So yes, we either try to talk to families if we're talking about the 60-day eviction
Mhm.
notices or letters.
And what do they
And
tell you? What do you hear from them specifically?
so for the 60-day, we basically heard that two things. That in this case, the family that I talked to told me that when they asked at the shelter that they would like to reapply or maybe get a ticket to Philadelphia, it will take the shelter like 10 days to get that. So they
Mhm.
decided to leave and buy their ticket by their own. Basically, they paid for it. This was a
Wow.
family who was like working before, like a couple of weeks before the 60-day notice hit.
Mhm.
So they kind of had some savings for that trip.
Right, right. And it must be very difficult. It's like you say to me, well, you got to wait 10 days. And okay, so I'll wait 10 days. But 10 days when you don't have a place to live, when you don't have children, when you're in a foreign country, when you've just been located somewhere, that 10 days is a very, especially when it's 28 degrees outside, that's a very, very long time. So we have, a significant amount of homeless people in the city. This doesn't help. Do they feel like, in terms of their interaction with other New Yorkers, do they feel like people are treating them well, or at least trying their best to, at least accept them, or do they still feel like they're being oppressed? Maybe not as bad as from their countries, but I'd be curious to how they view the way they've been received, aside from the structures that are out there.
I will say most of them are like super thankful of
They are
what.
thankful.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank every time that they have a place to live in, even though it's not like the ideal place, but they have a place to go at night and have some sleep. They're super thankful that they can eat something. Sometimes it's not the best food, and we've seen a lot of reports about the food, but still there's something, and that's better than having
Than where they
nothing.
were.
Hmm.
That's very interesting to hear, because we know what many of them, if not all of them, went through to get here. And then when they get here, and then you read your work, for example, that says they've been, they have a limited stay, and then you start to wonder, what do they feel like? Like, did we did all this? Is it better? But you're saying that they still feel like this is the place they want to be, right?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Sometimes they will complain about things like the food, or they don't feel that the 60 days notice is something like that will actually help families. They
Right.
will complain
But
about that
but
as well. But
what
in
you said,
general,
yeah, we're
having
almost at it.
having us a
we're, we're
place to
almost
live.
we're almost out of time, so I don't want to interrupt you. But the one thing that you and I mentioned before you went on the air is, was released just today or the other day, that the rate of influx of migrants is slowing. That's probably helpful to the whole process, and maybe give the mayor a better chance to get his arms around it. You know.
Yes,
So listen, Daniel, the Daniel Parra, the City Limits Spanish language editor and reporter. Thank you for your reporting, because
thank
and
you.
and even here to give us some insight as to what's going on is very, very useful. So we appreciate your time this evening.
No, thank you for having
Great,
me.
and say hello to Jean Marie and all our friends over there at City Limits.
Yes, she's
Okay,
saying
folks,
hello.
we will take a short break, and when we come back, you're going to love this. This is a segment about a Bronxite who was shown in Times Square. We'll be right back. Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I am very excited about this segment. It's an old friend and somebody who's an artist, an ice sculpturist now, and she's just been doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the Bronx, and good for her. It's Lovie Pignata. Nice to see you, Lovie.
Hi, nice to be here.
So we don't have to review everything you've done. I was just mentioning a mural I saw that you had done at the Boys and Girls Club, but what ice sculpture? What could have gotten into you?
Yes, I'm trying things that are a little more risky, and
Apparently.
and I love it. This came about. I did a residency on Governor's Island back during the pandemic, so I've been familiar with the island since it reopened, and it's just a beautiful place, and it's a great place for artists. So I knew about the ice sculpture contest. The first year I missed the deadline. The second year they didn't choose me, and I'm glad they didn't because this year was a giant prize for the Times Square.
Yeah, you got to show your stuff in Times Square, but in terms of ice sculpture, I'm going to be really naive here. Where do you get the ice from? Like I don't know that I'm going to my deli and saying, "Hey, you got a big block of ice that I can use to carve up." How does all that work?
Okamoto Studios is in Astoria, and
Hmm.
they are premier ice sculptors
Really?
in New York City. Um, they do many large sculptures everywhere. I now looking back, I see they did things at NYBG, but they do things all over the boroughs and some very cool sculptures. So they were the leaders in this sculpture contest and provided the tools, the the safety, and the training. We went to the studio the week of the contest
Hmm.
to all get our hands on a chainsaw and the tools that we would use on the Saturday.
Did you find that you were personally easily adaptable to doing this? And folks, by the way, we're gonna show all the stuff that she did and what was actually she won, and it was displayed at Times Square. I mean, I just can't imagine doing. I've seen it. I think it was at the Bronx Zoo. They have like their New Year's thing. They always carve stuff up. It's kind of interesting. But for somebody who hasn't done it before and it was not an ice sculpturist before, what was it like to try and sort that out? Or did it come easy? You said, well, just zipped it up, you know?
It's you had 2 hours, so there was not much thinking. It was
Wow.
just all doing. But I felt comfortable with the tools. The chainsaw, I'm left-handed, and it's a kind of a right-handed tool, so that was a little harder to manage because my sight line was a little bit off. But other than that, the other tools I've used before in different capacities, but um, to use them on ice was amazing.
And did
Um,
you create the design beforehand? Like did you
yes.
draw you drew it out and figured out how you were going to do it?
Yes, I use semi-transparent paper so it would be similar to ice, and then
Oh.
I physically cut it to my design to see how I would cut it with the chainsaw.
So
So,
let's describe the what actually won. And listen, it makes. I was going to tell you this before the show, and I saved it for this moment. Your name is Lovey, and here you are winning a love sculpture that is being shown on Valentine's Day in Times Square. That's rather remarkable. Let's just talk about the design and what the concept was that you were working with.
sure, the theme this year was love. So, I was excited about that just because who doesn't love love? Um, the mitten design, I love a play on words, and I love the word smitten and what it means. So it was kind of free flowing after I decided I was going to use mittens. I didn't go for the typical hand hearts because I did not want to carve fingers.
Okay.
So so the mittens kind of gave me an easy out, and it was exactly what was
and
the
came
right
out,
one.
and there you were. So for folks who don't know, those are two mittens. I mean, I can't do it, but it formed the heart. Oh, there you. I'm sure you've visualized this even in your bed going to sleep at night. Um, so did you carve it on Governor's Island and it was moved out there, or you had to like carve it out there in Times Square again?
Well, on Governor's Island, the 10 contestants carved for 2 hours.
Mhm.
And that was basically a model for what they did in Times Square. So I carved one block of ice. They carved almost 70 to
Wow.
create a larger version. It was so exciting to watch.
Well, I'm also trying to figure out, back to my question. My refrigerator doesn't hold anything that long. So I assume there's a big commercial freezer that they put them all in. I mean,
Yes,
I- I'm sorry for being so naive about it, but it's fascinating. And of
it
course, what you
is.
turned out was just beautiful. So what was that process? So you did it, and then they put it in storage. They froze
No,
it.
it melted on Governor's Island. So
Wow.
all the pieces that the 10 contestants did melted on Governor's Island. Even the trophy made of ice they gave me, I couldn't take it all the way home.
Right.
But the ice, I don't know where they source their ice because the studio itself is not that big. They're able to carve there and carve inside the freezers if need be. So the ice is supplied by their ice supplier. The blocks are 20 inches by 40 inches by 9 inches. That's the typical size for ice carving.
Wow.
And so I carved one, and then they stacked almost 70 and carved the same design.
And so this would, when the one that appeared in Times Square, they carved based
Yes,
on your design?
yes,
Oh, that's
yes,
fascinating. I didn't realize that. And those are the people of Okamoto's studio.
yes.
Okay. We should mention, to give credit where credit is due, the co-presenting partners were Governor's Island Arts, Times Square Arts, and Okamoto Studio. Um, your hands got cold? I
Not
mean, one would think. Did you wear mittens?
No, no. We just wore basic construction gloves, the cotton
Oh,
gloves with latex gloves underneath to shield you from the cold.
from the creative process, in comparison to other work that you've done, to murals or anything else that you've done, um, do you like it?
I,
Did you feel? Did
I
you
loved
love
it.
it? Did you hate it? Did you say, "I got to be done with this. I'm finished with it"?
No, I loved it, and
You loved it.
I love the time constraint about it. I'm a little shy in front of camera, so I was shocked when I turned around
You're
and there
doing
were
all right
hundreds of
today. So,
people. I know. I'm
uh,
getting better at it.
all right, fair enough. So that was something, as being in front of other people. That was the challenge, as opposed to being in your home or whatever, and you're sketching something.
Well, it didn't end up being a challenge because I was so into the ice and I was worried about running out of time. I was calling, how much time do I have left? And Okamoto Studio, Shintaro, who is the principal there, um, was my guide in carving. We each had, uh, there were 10 contestants and there were 5 professional art carvers to assist us, straighten up your line. They kind of, shouted like coaching at us. You got 10 minutes for this, and then we move on
Mhm.
to the next. So I'm glad I had that because it was hard to tell what time it was. It went by so fast.
And I want to ask you about that. And you were talking, and we've talked about other formats that you may have created in. And it's fascinating to me that you say you liked the time frame. I wonder if in other work you're going to start to put a little stopwatch on it and say, you know what, I'm going to give myself 2 hours to make sure to finish. In terms of your ongoing creative process, I wonder if that's not like you learn something from it. It's like a new element. Or you're
Yeah.
going to say never again.
No, I loved it. And I do put time constraints on some of my work, especially when doing proposals, because you can take up so much time and then you don't get that grant and you've,
Oh, that's
exerted that
true.
much creative energy. It takes a lot to fill out the grants and come up with ideas, some of them never get used. So they just kind of mill around until you can apply them somewhere else, or tweak the idea so that it fits to another art call.
Right. I got two things on that. Number one, I always ask artists, painters who paint paintings, I always ask them, how do you know when you're done? Because a lot of times it's like, well, I could add more. And then, some artists like, oh, that's it, I'm done. But other times you could probably drive yourself crazy, say,
Yes.
another little bit here. So that's one thing that I guess was instructive out of this. And then I'm curious, did you ever sculpt anything else? Did you work with clay? Have you done anything like this previously?
Yes, I studied sculpture when I was in college.
Ah,
So I've always kind of thought in 3D and always been drawn to it. Even when I paint, I try to put an element of space there, because I'd rather be doing 3D, but there's a lot more mural work out in the world. So um, I end up doing many murals, but this is much more my jam. This is what I would like to be doing, is just working in new materials, working in 3D, working site specific. Um, those are
and I will add in, and being displayed in the center of Times Square. That that
it's
kind of
hard to
helps.
beat.
I saw some numbers here about that finalists were awarded. You were awarded money. You can say how much if you want. It
Sure.
doesn't really matter. Go ahead.
All the contestants received $2,000 for competing, and then I received an additional $5,000 for winning.
Congratulations. Um, did the sculpture melt, or is it in storage somewhere?
They took it down last night.
Oh, was that painful?
No, it's temporary work, which I always appreciate, because I
Okay.
feel like you have to see it, or otherwise you miss it. You can see photos of it, but
Yeah.
I like the finite timeline. It's like an airplane, a hot air balloon ride. You don't know when you're gonna land. You don't know when it's over.
So now, I mean, the ice sculptures that I've seen have again been at the Bronx Zoo. Do you feel like you're going to do more? Are you going to do this again, or do
Um,
something like this?
I would like to use ice again, but a little less traditionally. So I'm working on a proposal now, so it's not a project that may come to fruition, but ice is on my brain right now.
Wow. Well, I wonder if that's going to change once the weather changes. Who knows? Lovey Pignata, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On site, on display there on Times Square. Just absolutely wonderful. And if you do more, I hope, as I always say, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, I'll be back, and you could join us again. Thank you so
Excellent.
much, and congratulations. I've known you a long time. I was really so proud of you
Thank you.
that
I
you
appreciate
really
that.
accomplished that. Thanks.
Thank
Okay,
you.
that will do it for the Bronx Buzz. We thank Daniel in our first segment. We thank Lovey in our second segment. And we thank you, of course. And as I said, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, we'll be here next week. Good night.